I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Been a while. I've been on maternal leave. No. I've just been doing other stuff, but I want to come back with a boom. And today we've got Elliott Hagen, who's become not only somebody that I want to do a podcast with, just somebody that I respect and I know his story. I've got friends who are friends with Elliott, and so Elliott's got his own podcast called Mind Your Head.
Correct, yeah.
Elliott comes from a space of mental health and, caring about people who care about people. And to me, that's what we're all about. We have to be about caring about other people. So welcome to The Truth About Addiction, Elliott.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for that introduction, mate. It's it's been amazing actually getting to know you from our last sort of episode that we did together. So yeah, pleasure to be here and can't wait to have a chat.
Yeah. See, to me, a lot of stigma that goes with people who grew up, whether it's with addictions or sporting people and high achievers, is that what happens is once we stop doing whatever we did, who are we?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question I ask everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Who are we now? Like, I spoke to SAS soldiers, I've spoken to world champion boxers, and one of my best friends is Johnny Lewis. He's had 5 world champion fighters, and and I ask them all the same question. When it stops, who are you?
It's a good question because that's something that I'm still working through now. I think the work for me in that regard, I don't think will stop. I think I'll keep evolving, keep growing, and I don't want to be the same person I was 5 years ago. So I'm always looking to get better and to evolve, and that identity was something I really struggled with, even when I was playing rugby, because there's always thoughts of, if I got an injury or if I stop playing right now, who am I and what am I going to do? And as a young kid, I procrastinated on that thought. I never gave it much thought after that. I was always like, oh, well, when I was 20, I always thought a 30-year-old was so far away. I just thought, I'll wait till I'm 30. 30's so far down the track. And before I knew it, I blinked and I was 30. And I stopped playing footy, couldn't play anymore. And then that's when the reality hit of, who am I? What am I going to do? I've always been Elliott, the rugby player. I've always had my mates and family and friends have always asked questions about how's the game going, how's the body feeling, like, are you playing good? Where's the team on the ladder? And then once I stopped playing footy, all those conversations were more towards, what are you going to do now? And that was a question that I always struggled with because I never thought I was good at anything else. I always leaned into sport, in particular rugby, but it was always sport because that's something that came naturally to me. I always picked it up. I didn't have to, a lot of people say you had talent from the get-go, and I think I leaned on talent too much. I think even at school, I was, that's the reason I leaned into sport so much, because I struggled so much at school. School is something I didn't pick up at all. I thought I had learning difficulties. I always needed extra attention or a tutor. Whereas all my friends, everyone in the class, they were sort of waiting on me to, to finish my work, or I was always super jealous of people that could just pick up schoolwork and, they're getting A's or B's and stuff. I'm thinking how are you guys doing that? I'm just scraping through with a C- or a C, and I just felt stupid. I felt dumb. I felt useless actually, until I went to a sport class. That's when I excelled. So I just put all my eggs in one basket. And really leaned to that sports side because I had a bit of confidence. I didn't feel useless. I felt important. When I was in sport class, I was always first picked. So I was just I felt needed. I felt wanted. So that bred that ego almost, or that want to always feel like that. I always wanted to feel important. I always wanted to feel not stupid or dumb. So I leaned so far into playing sports and playing rugby that I never wanted to feel like that again, until I stopped playing footy, and I went right back to feeling like that again because I didn't have that rugby side of it. I couldn't play sport anymore. I couldn't rely on that, getting that external validation. And I think that's when the real work for me started, was trying to figure out what I like, what I don't like, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And then not only that, was not let fear stop me from trying new things, because I was always good at rugby or good at sport. When you try new things, you just start from the bottom again. And that, the fear of that really held me back from trying new things up until, a few years ago, when I definitely leaned into doing a podcast, and something that scared the shit out of me. I realized that, you're not going to be good at it at the start. Like, I listened to a few episodes from the beginning and you're thinking, what the hell am I talking about? But the more you stuck at it, the more I got a bit of confidence, and the more I found my rhythm, the better I got at it. So I think, that journey for me stopped when I stopped playing footy, was a real one where I really had to do the inner work.
Yeah. I, as I said, everybody I speak to that have been high achievers and done what they love doing, which came easy, once that was gone, we're all of a sudden we're left with a big void. And the void, a lot of people turn to drugs and alcohol or other addictions, or I call them distractions. This word addiction gets thrown around a lot. Addictions, what they say is an addiction is something that can continually cause you harm, but you continually keep doing it. I'm addicted to work. Does it cause me harm? No, it doesn't. So I find that I can use those traits and those things that I had, my addictions, my afflictions, or my obsessive compulsive behaviour, as a positive thing. If I'm making a car, and I'm obsessive compulsive about it, the car's going to be perfect. So I don't know sometimes if they are afflictions, but what my mind told me that they were afflictions. My mind, the stuff that you talked about, we finished now. I was useless at school. I couldn't read or write. I finished school, I couldn't read or write. I could box. I could box, like anyone sees you go punch them up, So, like that crazy thing, and as you said, people come to the fights, they watch me box as a kid, and everybody was patting me on the back, and all of a sudden, then
It feels good.
the boxing stops. Well, what do I do now? What do I do now? So, my story was different. That, I turned to chemicals and other areas of my life that weren't that great. But I think the most important thing that I think we need to talk about is the liar, the thief, and the cheat that lives in our brain. And that's what I call it. I call it a liar, thief, and a cheat, because it tells me I'm worthless, useless, and hopeless. So it lies to me. It steals my joy, and it cheats me of achievement. So they're the three things that I really think that with your podcast, what I've seen when I watch your podcast, I think it's really important that we realise that what our brain tells us is not necessarily so. It's not, I want evidence. I want the evidence that tells me, why am I a liar? Why am I a thief? Why am I a cheat? And when I challenge it, it seems to run away. And I did a podcast with a guy in New Zealand. He was one of the founding members of the Black Power, really heavy gang over there. He's an older guy now, and he's turned to Christianity. And he said to me, I was a really scared guy my whole life. That's why I was so violent. That's why I was so angry. And that's why, I started the club. And while we ran the club on fear, and everyone was fearful. He said, and I was scared. He said, and I didn't realise I was scared. He said, then I found God and I found faith. He said, and one day fear knocked on the door and I asked faith to open it. He said, when he opened the door, there was nothing there. He said, because fear and faith can't be in the same room. And it was like a really nice word.
Love that.
When he said it to me, I thought, I like that. I like that analogy that fear and faith can't be in the same room. So, I think the story that I find for most people that change their direction in life is they have to become faithful to themselves. I don't know about, I don't like politics and I don't like religion because, they're like backsides. There's so many of them around and most of them stink, but, the reality is we have to have faith in something. And I believe the faith has to be in yourself, that it will be okay. As long as I have a crack, it'll be okay. It's like, we always talk about, whenever I talk to you, I talk to Chen, I talk to anyone who's played football. When I got taught to play football was never go into a tackle half-heartedly. You get hurt.
Yeah. True.
So always going all personal, going all the way. And I believe that's life, So you went from football. What did you do straight after football?
Well, that football journey's a long one because I left school, went into the army, and then pretty much straight out of the army, I got a contract to play rugby at 20 years old, and then from 20 years old all the way up to I think 29 was my last sort of senior grade game. And like going back to that sort of having that faith and believing in yourself, I think I didn't believe myself at all, surprisingly, when I was playing rugby. There's always I didn't have much confidence at all. I remember like thinking back to it, I would never go into a game thinking that I was good enough to be on the field. Despite all the teams that I made and the career that I had, and someone looking from the outside in, they would have, and they still do, they should be, you should be really proud of yourself for what you've achieved. And I've always thought to myself, man, if I even remotely went in thinking that I was good enough to be there, I wonder what could have happened. I wonder where I could have been. There's a lot of, I don't hold any regrets because I love the life that I have, and I love the outlook I have on life, and I love the family and friends I have in my life. But there's some times where I have I look back, there'll be like highlights will come up, or some will be in passing conversations talk about rugby, and I always think to myself, what could have been like if I actually gave it up, 110%. Because I think back to it now, and I reckon I gave rugby about 80%. To be honest with you, I think I was too fearful to put myself fully out there, and I think I almost use it as an excuse to why maybe I didn't go further because I didn't try hard enough. It almost like I fell back on using that as an excuse rather than if I gave it my all and I didn't make it, then I would seem like more of a failure. But if I only gave it 80% and I didn't make it, at least I could say, well, I didn't try hard enough. Yeah. I always think of that sort of thing. But I more use it now as a motivation to go harder and to give everything I have with the things I want to do in my life now and not hold anything back. There's some moments in life where I'm only giving it 80%, and I have to stop myself and go, what are you doing? Like give it your, find out all the answers. Don't leave any stone unturned. So after rugby, was a bit of a soul searching journey for me. We talked about my addictions, and I couldn't handle or didn't know how to handle the stresses, the anxieties, the pressures that came with not only playing rugby and trying to perform, but also probably my inner demons that started when I was a kid around my anxieties and my depression, and learning to tame the inner demons and the beast inside the head that you were talking about. And I think that began like the sort of the recreational drug use that is often in footy culture, is the alcohol and drugs, all the partying. But what actually led to that was when I first tried it, it was almost the most euphoric feeling that I ever had because it silenced all the noise in my head. I didn't have to pretend to be anyone. I didn't have to wear a mask or a disguise for who I really am. I could just sit and relax, and it almost like was a space where I could just go to sleep. Like it put me at that, I had that much noise in my head that it put me at that ease that I could just go have a good night's sleep, which is crazy to think about. And then as that sort of got worse and worse and worse, I became more dependent on it. And then it really spiked when I stopped playing footy because that whole identity crisis hit. And, there was no love for myself. Okay. I had no faith in anything. I thought I was a failure because I thought I didn't reach my potential. So I was leaving the game knowing that I should have done more, I could have done more, I should have, gone a little bit further. And then that's when all the noise started going even more intense. And then that's when the only remedy that I knew of, the only thing that I learned from was drugs and alcohol. So that's when I leaned on it more than I ever done before. And then, I was going back to it, I moved back to the sunny coast in China, you know, just doing a manual labouring job and something that, you know, I didn't like, and I was completely lost. I was completely and utterly lost, and I think that's when I broke up with I had a girlfriend for 5 years at that time, and I thought that was the problem. I thought the relationship was the problem, why I was feeling like this. I was always looking externally, I was never looking inwards. I was always looking externally why my life was a shambles.
Yeah.
And so I broke up with her. Couldn't tell her why. We've been together for 5 years. She did nothing wrong. And I broke up with her thinking that would make me feel better. And it didn't. And I thought, oh shit, maybe it's work. Maybe I've got to quit work. Maybe work's the issue. Quit work, still feel like this. Maybe I've got to move house. Move house, still feel like this. So I was always pointing the finger at other things and never actually pointing the finger at myself. I was never actually looking inwards. I was always blaming everyone else, everything else for how my life turned out at that point. And then, you know, there was lots of moments of thoughts of suicide leading up to, you know, 2017. There was always, you know, just little thoughts in my head. You know, a lot of it was meant to be a lot easier if I wasn't here. You know, that was the crux of it. It was, and then before you know it, like once a week, you know, thinking like that turned into, you know, a couple of times a week, turned into every day I was driving home from work going, man, I would wish I just wouldn't wake up tomorrow. You know, and I even like said this a little bit. I remember thinking to myself ways that I could do it where my family could still say goodbye to me. And it was crazy to think about now, the headspace I was in, because it was like a very rational thought, like I was going to the shops to get some milk and bread. You know, I would just think to myself, oh, maybe I could do it like that. I wonder if I could do it like that, so mum and dad could still see me and say goodbye to me. You know, and it was, even thinking about that now is so bizarre, because I can't believe that was a period of Elliott. I can't believe he went through that period of life. And I remember going out partying, like I had nothing to lose, because in my head I was always like, if I can't play any footy more, I'll just take my own life. That was the plan. And I remember going out one night, just been dropped from the team, got injuries, like almost finished playing, and I remember going out. I always had like a large amount of drugs on me. I had a lot of pills and stuff, and the night ended and I didn't want the night to end. I was just like, I want to keep this high going, because I was feeling so shit, and the high made me feel good. So I was just like, I don't want this to end. I want to keep going. And I remember like 4 in the morning, I got home and I was thinking to myself, I had a handful of pills, and I remember thinking to myself, who cares? If I wake up, I wake up. I'm in this shit. If I don't wake up, even better. I get to put myself out of this misery. And I remember like taking these handful of pills and just pretty much just going, you know, passing straight out. But I remember waking up like covered in piss, like massive headache, vomit like all down the bed, like all over me, like, you know, cause I so easily could have been on my back vomiting. I could have suffocated. Like so many things run through my head during that time, and even waking up like with a massive headache, like my brain was just throbbing. I was in so much pain. And even that moment, I still was in denial of what I just did and what just happened. I was still, oh, that's just another big night for Elliott. That's just another big night. And honestly, that happened in August, and then that same year in December, I went down to Sydney for New Year's on a 3 or 4 day bender. And still up to that point, I was in denial what happened, you know, 4 or 5 months earlier. I was still like, no, that's just another big night. It wasn't until I got back from that Sydney trip where I physically couldn't go to sleep. Like I had that many drugs in my system that I think my nervous system was so fried that I physically couldn't go to sleep. Every time I went to close my eyes and go to sleep, my body would just jolt me awake. I wasn't too sure what was going on. Like I've talked to some doctors about it, and I've read a little bit about it now. Like your nervous system was so fried that your body thought I was dying. It couldn't, you know, tell the difference whether you're going to sleep or whether you're dying. So it kept waking me up. So I didn't sleep. Man, I didn't sleep for like 3 or 4 days. Terrified, absolutely terrified. And then I went and checked myself into hospital in Brisbane and told her what happened. Like, I was completely honest with the nurse. Like, and again, even then, I was still like, oh, I just had a 3-4 days down in Sydney for New Year's. Nothing to read into it. And she was like, right, we got to do some tests and everything. Like, my piss was black. Like, I was so dehydrated. I had, like, my kidneys were failing. Like, I put on a drip. I had a carton of waters, and she's like, you can't leave here until all that's gone, until you're hydrated. And I remember, like, a chaplain, they had like a hospital chaplain would come by, and I remember like him coming by because it was like 3 a.m. Obviously the nurse could tell I would have reeked, like I would have looked terrible. She must have tipped off the chaplain or something, I don't know. But I'm not a religious person either. And he came up to me and he was like, is everything all good? And I'm like, yeah, no, everything's fine. Like, go away. Like, everything's like pretty much in denial again. And then he was like, everything good at home? What's your home life like? And I'm like, yeah, everything's good at home. It's all good. And he looked at me and I looked at him and he knew that I was lying and I knew that he knew that I was lying. And he goes, okay. And he just paused. He didn't say anything else, but he just paused. And I knew that he could look straight through me. And I didn't have enough money to even pay for the visit. I had no money. It was all spent on drugs. So I had to get mum and dad, call them up. Like it would have been 10 o'clock at night because I still couldn't get to sleep, to pay for the visit, to pay for the hospital visit. And that was like a biggest turning point for me was during that time of calling mum and dad and letting them know, I just checked myself in the hospital, like trying to play it off, like not a big deal. And they were like, all right, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, everything was fine. It's all good. But same thing with the chaplain, like the pause in our voices and the tone and the way Dad was talking to me, and they knew something was up. And I knew that too, but I just couldn't say that to them. Couldn't find the courage or the strength to actually tell them that, I'm in some deep trouble here. But that conversation, was enough for me to actually reevaluate my life. And I remember like laying in the hospital bed there and looking around and actually looking at the person that I'd become. I was completely ashamed of myself. I hated myself. I had no love for myself whatsoever, to the point where I just was I was hurting everyone around me because I was so, I was so selfish that this is how I was going to repay my mum and dad for moving across from New Zealand at like 18 years old, had no sense to their name, raising 3 boys on fuck all money, working a full-time job. Mum worked the same job for 30 plus years just to, just put food on the table, to keep us all happy. I had the best childhood. And I remember laying on the bed and all these thoughts was going through my head of all the sacrifices mum and dad had made for the family and all the hard work and even all the sacrifices that I probably don't know about, all the things that they didn't tell us or I didn't see. This is how I was going to repay them, by avoiding doing all the work, was self-destructive, was going to decided to end my life because it was too unbearable, because I was too afraid to do the work. And that was the biggest light bulb moment for me. I know a lot of people go through, their own, therapies and rehab centers and that sort of thing. But I remember, I still remember to this day, laying in the bed and thinking about my mum and dad and going, yeah, I can't, no parent should be bury their child. I don't want to put mum and dad through that. And for my whole life, I was always running from it. My whole life since I was 16, I always had this feeling that something was up, that I was always avoiding, procrastinating about it, and I was just hoping every year would go by. I was hoping this feeling would go away, and it wouldn't. It didn't go away at all. It just got stronger and stronger, and the more I used drugs, the stronger the feeling got. The more I suppressed it, the stronger this feeling got. So it got to a point where I was in hospital where I was like, no, something's got to change. My parents don't deserve this. Let's stop running and actually try to figure out what's going on. So I moved back to the Sunny Coast, got out of that scene, stopped using drugs and alcohol. For a moment there, stopped using drugs and alcohol. Went and saw a psychologist. For the first time going to see a psychologist was one of the best decisions I actually ever made. I was always so afraid to tell friends and family the thoughts that was going inside my head, because I was always didn't want them to feel sorry for me. I didn't want them to treat me, like give me sympathy or treat me differently. But as a friends and family, like I understand if you're telling someone that, their natural response is they're going to give you that sympathy, they're going to care for you, they might treat you differently because of what you're going through. I never wanted that. So I was always really fearful of talking to them, but talking to my psychologist that I didn't know, that I actually really connected with, she just sat there and she said, "What's on your mind?" And for an hour, I just chatted for an hour. An hour was up and she said, "All right, see you next week." I went, "Okay, I'll see you next week." And it was good because I knew that she wasn't going to go home and, I mean, obviously she cares for everyone that she talks to, but I knew that she wasn't going to go home and, not get lose sleep over Elliott. Whereas I know my mum and dad would. So I did 4 or 5 sessions with a psychologist, and the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. That I for so long I felt different. I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt like it was only me going through this, and for the first time feeling like, oh, there's other people that are dealing through this. Like I'm not the first one to go through it. I won't be the last one to go through it. It just gave me like little tips and tools to manage that head noise, and obviously really dove into my exercise. I think when I was playing rugby, one of the biggest things that I got out of playing rugby was that competition, of course, and competing and playing in a team sport was actually pushing myself physically and mentally to the limit. I think the training, I'd always have a clear head during a game and after the game. I'd always have a clear head, and it was due to that exercise. So there were a lot of like tips and tools and ways to clear that head noise. But I mean, that was 7 years ago when I started that, and I'm still doing the work now, and I'm still trying to hone in of how to clear the head noise, or the best little checklist that I've got to keep the head noise down. But yeah, that first initial bit was really tough to go through, and I understand when people are fearful to go through it because it is tough. It's so hard to figure out these things and go seek help and actually talk to someone about it. And I'm with my wife now. I don't think I told you I got married a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, thank you. That's where I met my wife, Jordan. She was the biggest motivator actually for me to seek more answers, because I had a few mental health episodes during that time when we first started dating where the littlest thing in the world would set me off for about 2 or 3 days of just anger. I couldn't calm myself down, and it happened 2 or 3 times when I was first dating Jordan, and she sat me down and gave me an ultimatum. She said, "Look, I could handle this, but I'm not letting this standard for our children, for our future kids. I don't want this standard. I can't have you go for 2 or 3 days angry when we've got kids to look after. So if you want to look for the answers, I'll support you all the way. But if you don't want to keep doing the work, then see you later."
Yeah.
So I had a few head knocks playing footy. That was one of the reasons why I had to stop playing footy, was the concussions. I had one really, really bad one. And then since the bad one, I had a number of, little ones, but they all felt terrible, and I probably should have stopped playing when I first got that bad one at 21. But I was 21, first got a contract up. I'm Superman, invincible. I'm not stopping. So there's a part of me that, because I kept playing and kept getting little ones, there's a part of me that believes that I've done some irreversible damage to the brain, and all the data and knowledge that's coming out of around CT at the moment, they can only sort of tell what's going on after you die and cut your brain open. So, but there's always symptoms, that sort of thing. But those symptoms of CT mimic, people with, mental health issues as well. So I went down that road, went to concussion clinic, got my head scanned. There was no visible signs. Did cognitive tests and memory and moving pencils or things, and do a bit of coordination and that sort of thing. And then actually went down a road where I went to a psychiatrist and actually deep dived into my mood swings and my irritability and my mood swings were the main thing. And I started noticing mood swings when I was about 29, 30. I don't know what happens to the male brain at 29, 30. I don't know if we fully develop, but I started to notice all my flaws and how I react in certain situations and how I respond to certain situations, and my mood swings would just come and go so quickly, and I was so surprised by that. And I was like, oh, maybe it's because of the head knocks. And I would ask mum and dad and ask my best friends, because the psychologist was like, maybe get a bit of a gauge and maybe talk to your other friends and family and see what they reckon about your mood swings. Is it a new thing? Is it an old thing? And I talked to friends and family, and they're like, yeah, you've always been like that. And I'm like, since when? And they're like, oh, probably when you hit puberty around that like 15, 16, going like that high school, like that's when we could really tell, like, you know, you could be set off really easily. Your mood swings would be up and down. Like we could always tell in the mornings if Elliott's going to have a good day or a bad day. And I was like, why didn't anyone tell me this? You know, and then that's when we chatted to the psychologist and put me on a spectrum of bipolar. My symptoms very mimic what bipolar is, where I was worried that my highs are super high and my lows are really low, but because my lows are really low, my highs seem high, but he goes, your highs are actually normal. Like you're not doing anything, you know, out there, you know, your highs are just what everyone else feels. And I was like, oh, really? But your lows, because your lows are low, it seems like your highs are massive. So, and he just connected the dots. Like he really like connected the dots of how I am, how I've ever been. And it gave me a bit of closure to understand, like, yeah, maybe I'm not so broken after all. Maybe there is hope that I can get better, because for a long time I just thought, oh, this is gonna suck. If I'm gonna be like this for the next 70 years, life's gonna suck. And then from that point moving forward, he's given me almost a checklist of things, of ways where when I get in a low, instead of those lows last 2 or 3 days where I'm a prick to be around, I'm a, you know, those mood swings come and go. There's ways for me to get out of those spots, whereas before I'll just let it consume me, and before you know it, you know, end of the week's gone and Elliott's been a prick for the whole week. So he's given me checklists and tools and ways to get better. But yeah, I think meeting Jordan and having her in my life was the extra push that I needed to be a better person.
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting because I've been dealing with mental health for over 40 years, and I'm still learning, and I still suffer. But my lows are 3 minutes, where before they'd be 3 days.
Same, yep.
So I still have them, and they can come out of nowhere. And a lot of it's got to do with acceptance, because I'm still a selfish little boy. Deep down inside, I still like to do things my way. And it's, you know, don't get me wrong, it takes time to readjust and to rewire the brain. And I believe that's what we're doing. I believe we are rewiring the brain. And I do believe with my whole heart that we have, I really don't like the word disease, but when you think about, when I break it up into, I'm not at ease with myself, so I'm diseased, I can cop that. I can cop that I'm not at ease with myself. So therefore I have to find something to find peace. And for me, peace was acceptance. Accepting that I'm not at ease. Instead of fighting that not at ease and trying to fix it, I've had to accept, okay, I'm not at ease. Big deal. Suck it up, sweetheart, and get on with it, you know. Like, I accept that I don't have to be right all the time either. Even when I'm right, I don't have to be right. It's not that important to make turmoil in my brain, because I'm not wired like everybody else, you know, and I had to accept that. I did have to accept that, whether it was because I was a boxer and I had lots of hits in the head, or, you know, and I had a very traumatic upbringing because I was a violent family. You know, and if our upbringing is completely different, but they're exactly the same. Because when I'm achieving, I'm getting pats on the back. I'm not having these lows, you know. But I always felt like I was a fraud. And it was untrue, because everyone else is telling me, you know, because even with yourself, because I know people you play football with tell me, man, he was a great fly half, you know, he was a really good footballer, he's so talented. And then in your brain, you're going like, no, I'm a failure, I'm a fraud. Yeah. You know, I don't belong, you know. So that tells us that there is a imbalance of some type. And, you know, the part that I found interesting in your story just then is that you found someone to talk to. See, what I do is I talk to people. That's what I do. And I'm a good listener. I listen to people, and I listen to people and I listen to them tell their story and everything else. And then they'll tell me this story that they really believe. And I'll say, but what evidence do you have that's true? And you watch them now, they'll go like, none. I thought, maybe it's not true. Write it down on paper. I'm a big believer in writing stuff on paper. Because while it's in my head, I'll manipulate it to suit how I want it to go. But once I put it on paper, it's there. It's black and white, and I can't justify, things. And, I've been blessed enough to stay drug-free and alcohol-free, to know that, for me personally, alcohol takes away my ability to recognise reality. So that if I'm not living in reality, how am I going to change anything? How am I going to fix anything? And I have friends who are super high achievers. I'm talking about people with hundreds of millions of dollars. And I tell them, I say, mate, you're so broke, all you have is money. And they get pissed off at me, and I tell them, try to tell someone, you're unmanageable. You're $300,000, $300 million in the bank, but you're unmanageable. They go like, I run corporate companies, I run this. I say, you run jack shit. Yeah. You have managers, you have this, you have that, and you have people who prop you up. And that's even in sport, we have people that prop us up, And I had this conversation with Kevin Walters and Ben Eichen a couple of years ago about the Broncos culture, and they didn't like it very much when I said, like Alfie is a liability, he's not an asset. They're like, well, hey, he's a hero of our club. I said, he's also the drunk. Not being disrespectful. If you're an 18-year-old kid, you've got the hero standing on the table, pulling his pants down, and falling off the table while I'm drunk, and that's what I'm going to aspire to be. I'm in trouble. And then I see Mike Maguire came in straight away. We moved Alfie out of the club.
He saw it though.
Yeah. And I had a mate of mine ring me up and said, someone's listening. And in sports we have a massive issue. We have a massive issue, and I'm glad that you're starting to aim at that point, in your podcast and getting people on, sports people, and it does rob us of achieving our full potential. I say we run on about 60-70%. If you're really maximally training, if you're really committed, and you're taking your chemical on the weekend, you're still running on about 70%. You're losing 30% of your ability and your commitment, because there is no physical, mental, or spiritual advancement with taking a chemical. There's none. So if it's not helping us, it's hindering us, And I spoke to Johnny Lewis, the famous boxing trainer, yesterday, and he wants to start doing some stuff. And he said to me, we've lost what we are. We've lost, like boxing, he's talking about the boxing industry. He said, we have footballers getting $1 million for a fight these days. He said, who can't fight? He said, he said, we've lost our industry. He said, we have to bring everything back to basics. It's the same as I see a lot of really talented footballers. And there's one that you and I have spoke about before, who's a young kid, and he's just got a big mouth, and he needs a mentor, he needs some training, he needs some education about being a human being, about what a male is. And you only get that through conversation. You don't get that through osmosis by sitting next to someone. You've got to talk, and you've got to be humble, and you've got to be open. I have a real, there's 8 demands I talk about: the openness, the acceptance, reliability, congruence, thoroughness, consistency, respect, and honesty. You've got to have those things in your life to let people in to help us change. But the funny part with you, Elliott, is that everybody I talk to that knows you says the same common denominator. He's such a good human being. That's the greatest compliment you can have. Not he was a great footballer. He's a good human being. And I believe that's what we have to be. I think that's the thing we all miss. You know, I like the pretty cars, I like the you know, all that stuff. But helping somebody across the road is a lot more satisfying than the nice car.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've realised too, was how good it makes me feel when I help someone.
Yeah.
And I was always, that service to others was something that was never part of my values growing up. Especially like playing professional sport, it's all in for you. You're trying to make it. I know you're part of a team, but you're trying to get the next contract. You're trying to make the next team. You're trying to move up. You're trying to get more money. You're trying to play good for you. And it becomes very cutthroat in that sort of way. And the moment I started, you know, we can always. What really helped me with service to others was actually start servicing myself first, loving myself first, and you know, I can't be the best person for other people. I can't be the best person for Jordan or my parents or my friends, and if I wasn't in love with myself. And I know that sounds a bit weird for someone to say that, and the arrogance and that sort of thing, but I truly believe that the moment I started loving myself truly was the moment I could start loving others fully as well.
I agree.
So that started with, you know, figuring out what I like and leading into it and what I don't like. You talked about the alcohol and the drugs. Like, it's been 18 months since I've stopped drinking and taking drugs, and I wish I'd done it earlier. That was one of the best decisions I ever made. Like, I honestly, I was disguising my alcohol taking. You know, every time I drank, I became this person that I thought everyone wanted. He was a larrikin, or he was extroverted, or he was, you know, either charming, or, you know, he could always chat to people and have these conversations, and that's what I thought I was. But I wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. I thought it was bringing the best out of me, but it was actually bringing the worst out of me.
Yeah.
You know, it was. I turned into an idiot, or I'd make poor decisions, and then that led to more drug use, and it was almost like a gateway for me to be. It was almost a gateway for me to be a dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, and it never served me anything other than negativity. Or even, you know, even have the best night with my friends, I always wake up in the morning and go, fuck, like, why did you do that? I always have regret. I always wake up with regret after a night of a piss, and I hated that, and I knew it was bad for me. I knew I didn't like it, but there was always the thought, like, why do you keep doing it? Why do you keep doing it? Do you not have respect for yourself? And it actually came down to not having respect for myself, because I'm doing something that I don't like, that turns me into a person that I don't like, and I wake up in the morning with regret. And I go, why the hell do you keep doing it? And even when I started this podcast, I was like, no, I'm gonna do the things that I love. I'm not gonna compromise on those things, despite what anyone else thinks or believes. I don't care about their opinions, respectfully. I'm going to do what feels good to me and what's good to me, regardless of what anyone else thinks. And then that first one was giving up alcohol and drugs. That was the first one to go, and I didn't put a date on it. I didn't say, I'm going to take 3 months off. I'm going to have a year off, whatever it is. I didn't put a date on it. I said, that's not me anymore. It's not part of my identity. I don't see myself as someone that takes drugs and drinks. So, you know, people ask me, oh, how long are you going to go for? I'm like, it's not me. Yes. Yeah, just for today, and we'll attack it again tomorrow. So, yeah, and I think that was one of the best decisions that I ever made, because it gave me respect for myself, that I can do these things, line in the sand, and I think, well, what else can I do? Like, what else? Like, where else can this lead? You know, and it became like, all right, diet's always been a big one. So my diet, exercise, and then having these cold plunges and saunas, but also chasing things that I've always thought was impossible to do. Like, I always just thought, oh, I can't grow a podcast. I can't have a podcast full time. You know, I was always, I think I talked to you about it off camera, was, you know, I was always envious of people having these jobs that they were so passionate about that they couldn't wait just, you know, to go to sleep on a Sunday and wake up on Monday and get to do job, which is actually their passion. Like you said before, you never worked a day in your life.
Yeah.
I've never felt like that. I've always worked a day in my life. I've always had a job that I didn't want to go to. You know, until I started this podcast where it was like Christmas every time I got to record. Even though when I wasn't recording, I had to do my prep for it and had to do my research and research the guest and get my questions sorted. Even that bit that felt like homework, that was the best. That was so much fun. And then obviously when I got recording days and I got guests coming in, it was the best day ever. Like the feeling I get, I go, how good's life? I get to have these amazing conversations with amazing people. And that was the first time in my life where I've gone, yeah, I'm not even getting paid to do this, but you don't even need to pay me. I'll do this for the rest of my life and just have the best time ever. So I think when people say, and it's nice because they do say things like compliments, and I do get a lot of messages coming in and saying you're doing amazing work and you're helping a lot of people, and that's incredible. And actually, I get a little bit of if I'm being honest with you, I get a little bit of imposter syndrome when people say that, just because I don't think there's moments where I don't feel like I'm doing enough. Like, who am I? Like, who am I to give advice, or who am I to have a platform like this? Like, I've got no qualifications and I've got nothing like that. But then there's a bit of me going, well, you've got life experience. You know, instead of someone who's read a book or done a uni degree and read a bit of data around it. Like, I've got that life experience. I know what it feels like. I know the pain. I know the hurt. I can really relate to people's. Not everyone's situation. Everyone's situations are different, but I can really relate to the feelings, the emotions that some people go through. Yeah.
To me, that is what this whole podcast business is about. Like, I'm 70 years of age, so when they said do a podcast, I couldn't even spell it. Like, what? And because I had friends in social media and they were all doing podcasts, and they all said, like, you've been clean so long. I've been doing this recovery stuff for 44 years. One of my best mates, a guy that I started helping, is 41 years clean today. So I've been helping people for a long time, but those people helped me. And that's what I found out from doing podcasts. I get I stopped doing it because I got sick last year and I had a few health issues and things like that. And I get messages, oh, Ron, have you stopped doing the podcasts? And I get messages, oh, I got clean because I listened to your podcast. I live in the middle of nowhere and your podcast motivates me to stay off the drink. And that gives me that confidence and that drive to go, okay, so we're going to start back in a podcast. It's not going to all just be about addiction these days. It's just going to be about life, and sometimes I have people on, like Johnny Lewis, the ex-fighter trainer. I had Johnny on because he's addicted to helping people. He doesn't drink, he doesn't drug, but he's addicted to helping people.
Do you think we all have addictions?
Yeah, 100%.
You just got to use, because I feel that too, that my addiction, and Jordan's said this to me before, is like, your addiction is to growth. Like, you always are searching for ways to get better. Like, if I read something that goes, all right, you need to have this, and all about longevity or feeling better, or feeling better in your gut, or you're feeling better in your head. Like, you're always all in or nothing. Like, if you're always addicted to getting better and growing, and if you're not growing, like, you feel like you're going stale. Yeah. And I'm like, is that good or bad? She's like, oh, I'm not too sure if it's good or bad. I think it's good because you got to realize. She's like, I want you to realize that you are enough as you are. And I'm like, okay. It's always good to get better every day and to seek that growth and to learn more and grow more. But I just want you to know you are enough.
I think the secret to that one is you absorb everything. What fits, use. What doesn't fit, let it go. Because not everything fits. Not everything fits us. I still like to train. I'm 70 years of age. The doctor told me, stop training. I'm not going to stop training. I'm not going to stop training. You know, like, but what I've done is I've reduced my training to a point where I'm not hurting myself. But I can't, you know, like, but I don't, it's not that I can't, I don't want it.
I can't see you trained all your life.
Yeah, exactly. I've trained my whole life since I was
Why stop now?
10 or 11. You know, like, I was boxing at 10 or 11 years of age, amateur boxing, and I've trained my whole life. I have a gym in my house, full setup. I can just go out the backyard and turn the treadmill on and walk for an hour and then get down and just do some light weights and things like that. But I'm not trying to rotate the world anymore. So what's happened is I've taken the ego away and I use the training more like as a medicine.
Yeah.
I still believe if you don't use it, you lose it. That's why I believe we must continue working our brain. That's why I really like the name of your podcast. Another friend of mine's got another podcast and it's called The Enemy Within. That's all about our brain. And I talk about this a lot. When people commit suicide, and I don't mean to be hard about this, most of them hang themselves or shoot themselves in the head. There's a reason for it. This is my concept. Because they're trying to separate their head from their body. They're trying to shut the brain up. So if the problem's in the brain, we have to work with the brain. We have to rewire the brain. I'm not big on statistics. What I'm big on is what works. And if you can do handstands for an hour, it makes you have a better lifestyle and makes you a better husband, a better father, and a better human being. Do handstands for an hour. I don't believe there's just one way for all of us. It's not one hat fits all. There's 12-step programs, there's psychology, there's EMDR. They're talking about microdosing now. I'm not a fan of microdosing, only because it scares me and I don't know enough about it. But I didn't micro anything.
Yeah, you did.
I was a macro.
Very macro.
I'm a macro.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed a guy called Andy Foe. He lives in America. He's a real famous tattooist. And he has addiction problems. And he said, I did the microdosing. He said, the first time I did that 0.117 a gram, whatever it was, he said, it was this really great experience. He said, 3 weeks later, I had all the windows shut and I was eating grams and grams of mushrooms and I never came out of my room for 4 weeks. And that would be me. That would be me because I find that once too many is not enough. I don't micro anything. I don't micro nothing. Everything about me is full on or full stop. And I'm aware that that's part of my nature, but I'm also aware that we can use that as a positive. And I really believe that we should, for me, recover out loud so people don't have to suffer in silence. I want to be able to say to people, I've thought of suicide. And my head told me that my family would be better off without me. So therefore my head's a liar. So my family wouldn't be better off without me. My family would be devastated. So therefore I can't rely on my own thoughts. So if I can't rely on my own thoughts, it means I need somebody who's saner than I am to talk to. I've had the same mentor for 39 and a half years. I still have him today. I don't ring him up every day and say, this is going, but I do run stuff past him still. And people say, after 39 years, you still run stuff? I say, yeah. They say, why? I say, because I don't trust my own thinking. Because I'll justify it to what I want.
You fit the script.
Yeah. I'm a human being first, which means I'm flawed. I'm a male second, which means I have an ego. And I'm an addict third, which means I'm obsessive and compulsive. So I have to treat all three of those things. And to me, the physical part of addiction is that once I start, I can't stop. The mental part of the addiction is once I start thinking about it, my obsession becomes a compulsion. And the spiritual part of my disease is the total self-centeredness. That I don't care if I'm hurting you and everybody else around me that I love, if I have to get stoned, And I've always said it. I love drugs. I hated the person I become to have to use them. And now the nice part is I've been abstinent so long that I like me. And I agree 100% what you said. I had to love me first before I could love anybody else. I had to trust me first before I could trust anybody else. And people say to me, how do you get such good self-worth? I say, by doing worthy things.
Is that where you get your high?
Yeah.
That's where I get my high now.
Integrity. Not throwing something out the window. Not throwing a piece of paper out the window. Unwrapping a piece of gum. And my first initial was like, oh, there's no one around, just throw it out the window. And it's like, no, I won't throw it out the window because I put it in the side of the car and I'll throw it out when I get home. Take a piece of gum out of my mouth and wrapping it up and putting it in the side of the car. It sounds stupid.
But I think
Integrity.
Yeah, it's who you are when no one's watching.
Yeah.
I think it's most important.
It is.
No, it's easy to be a good person when you've got cameras in front of you and people are watching you, but who are you when no one's watching?
Exactly.
I think that's what really counts.
And I struggled with that for many years because I was a criminal and I had my whole identity was this wrong, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, successful businessman, and all my mates were still, I wasn't a street dealer, I was on the corner selling, I was organised crime. And I thought that was who I was, and it's not who I was at all. That was just another lie that my brain had told me. And then I got really scared that once I stopped that, who would I be? And the funny part is the guy who I've become is the guy I've always wanted to be. Is the guy that I always wanted to be.
And how long did it take for you to get there?
16 years.
16 years.
16 years it took me to get to a point where I got honest enough to say, no, I was drug free for 16 years. But I was born a criminal. So it wasn't like some people go into crime because they're drug addicts. I wasn't that guy. I was a criminal and then I went into drugs. And then I got sort of kicked out of the crime families because drug addicts are inconsistent and unreliable, and to them they call them weak. And because my fear of never working, I've always worked for myself, was so strong and my faith was so small, I always had that in my back pocket. Where today I don't have that in my back pocket. It's so nice to know that no matter what, I won't commit a crime. No matter what, I won't pick up a drug. Why? Because it's detrimental to my self-worth. And once I become unworthy, I become untrustworthy. And when I become untrustworthy, I become selfish.
The flow-on effect.
The flow-on effect, it goes back the same as it goes forward. But on a daily basis, I wake up every morning, I put my feet on the ground, and I breathe. And I ground myself. Then I make a gratitude list. It's not a big deal. I don't sit down and write the list anymore. It's in my head. I just say thank you to who I don't know. And every night I say thank you for helping me stay clean and sober for the last 24 hours, and please help me stay clean and sober for the next 24 hours. And I do that out of humility so that I don't believe that I'm in control. Because the last person I want driving the bus is me. When I'm driving the bus, mate, we could end up anywhere. So I have this ritual that I do, and I'm a big person that believes in consistency. We do the same thing over and over again. It becomes muscle memory. You don't have to think about passing the ball. You know that you're going to pass the ball. You know what I mean? You don't have to think about, what am I going to do next? It's muscle memory. And to me now, muscle memory is not being a thief and a liar and a cheat. To myself first, mate, and then to society as a whole. And I think if we take on the responsibility of having a platform of podcasting, we have a responsibility.
Hold us accountable.
Yeah. I think we have a big responsibility.
I think about that a lot, and that when you're saying there, you sort of wake up and you do the gratitude, and I always used to wake up or even go to bed and think, why did I have to go through all that to be the person that I am? Was that always part of my story? Did you think right now at 70 years old, do you think that you had to go through all that pain and hardship to become the person you are?
100%.
100%.
100%. 100%. If you didn't walk the walk, you can't talk the talk. I will not listen, and you know yourself. If someone comes to you and starts talking to you about rugby and they're talking crap, within 30 seconds you're like, this guy's full of crap.
Yeah.
You know, within 30 seconds.
I can tell if you've played a game of footy or not.
Yeah, it's within 30 seconds like, this guy's a bullshit artist,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I watch somebody, as soon as they start punching the bag, I look at their feet, I look at their whole shoulders, I see the way they're standing, I think, you're a fraud.
Yeah.
You're a fraud.
Yeah.
You know, you were never trained, you know. You've punched the bag and you've kicked the bag and you sort of speed up and gimpy and you think you've got it all under control, you know what I mean? Like, you know, if you know, you know, you know. And it's the same with life. You can't con a con. That's why your message will be so valid for people that have gone through what you've gone through and you've come out the other side. And, you know, as I say, you know, with responsibility, you know, we have a lot of gifts given back to us, because I believe in giving we receive. You give love and compassion, you receive love and compassion. And I think the only job we have is to be a good human being, not a human taking. Because when I'm taking drugs, mate, I'm a human taking. I'm taking your friendship, I'm taking your lives, you know, I'm taking everything from you, you know. And I don't like that guy. I really enjoy being who I am today. I believe that yesterday's dead, tomorrow's not born, so all we have is now. I'm a big believer in that we only have today. That's it.
Are you good at being present in the moment?
That's it.
Are you good at it? Because I've never been.
Yeah.
I'm slowly getting better at now, being present in the moment, because I was always sort of worried about the past or dwelling over the future. But I'm getting better each day at being present in the moment. And I think when we got married 2 weeks ago, such a beautiful day. It was, you know, a year in the making of planning, and Jordan. The ceremony was at 3:30, and Jordan started getting ready at 11:30. And I remember like just sitting around, and obviously everyone's there, sort of making her look good and all the makeup and hair and everything like that. But I was by myself, so I was just walking around, and we're at a Airbnb up in Mullaney, and there's a farm there, so I went and fed the cows, and I was kind of like wanting time to go by just so we could start the ceremony. And I had to stop myself and remind myself that just to enjoy this moment, this 3 or 4 hours that you got to yourself where you can just sit and think about all the things that's happened in your life and actually be present in the moment and go, oh, how good's this? Like, I don't want to just waste time. I don't want to hurry up and time to go by. I just want to enjoy every moment, even though I was getting nervous and the anticipation of the ceremony, and I was like, oh crap, this is it. I didn't want to skip it. I didn't want to press, fast forward on it. I want to live in the moment and feel all the feels. So I remember just like being present, and I remember just going out to like the back garden. You could look over the Glasshouse Mountains. So I remember just sitting there for 3 hours and just thinking to myself, how good is this? Because there's going to be a point in time, I don't know, however long in the future, where I'll be able to look back at that and think about that moment and not forget it, or not go, oh, well, Elliott just tried to hurry up and make the time go by because I was feeling all the emotions. I don't want to feel the emotions, but I had to remind myself these emotions are good. Yeah. They're all healthy emotions, feel it. And then especially like when, everyone started getting there, I was like, oh, this is pretty real. Hurry up. It's like almost like a footy game, like all the anticipation before a footy game. I was just like, can we just press kickoff? Like someone's blowing the whistle already. Someone blowing the whistle, let's just start this already. But they're the things that I'm going to remember so much is waiting at the altar with all the family there, and sort of, obviously waiting for Jordan to come by. But even those minutes there where I'm sort of the height of anxiety and nervousness, they're the precious moments that I'm going to remember, as well as the ceremony itself and the beautiful day it was. But me just sitting there, or standing there, and just being present in the moment, and enjoying it all.
Well, we only have the moment. Mm-hmm. If you really get honest, we only have this moment. Right here, right now, is the only thing that's relevant in this world. And I say this, and I've said the crude version is, if you've got 1 foot in yesterday, 1 foot in tomorrow, you're going to shit all over today. Now, that's the crude version. That's the one I've used for 40 years. Today I just say, yesterday's dead, tomorrow's not born. All we have is now. Nothing's promised. There's no tomorrows are promised. Every person that passes away today had plans for tomorrow. So we can only have today. And if we cherish the moment and we live in the moment, we get to enjoy it. We get to feel it. We get to love it. We get to appreciate it. And life's about memories, and memories of the past. And if you go into the future, they're imaginations. So when you get out today, you're living either in the past, and your memory's not that great.
Like you said before, it fits your story, doesn't
Exactly.
it? You remember the things that you want to remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, like they've even stopped criminal. They've even stopped eyewitnesses' accounts because they're inconsistent. Because that's a person's memory. Because they're inconsistent. It can be influenced by other things. Like they showed them a photo of the guy and said, "This is the guy we think it is." Then they bring the guy in the lineup and they go, "Oh yeah, that's him."
Yeah.
And it wasn't him at all. They've been influenced by the photo.
Yeah.
So memory's what you make it. The future's just your imagination. So really, when you get really basically down to honesty, which I believe that's what life is honesty, and that's where integrity comes from. Honesty, humility comes from honesty. Everything comes from honesty, without fear, and faith comes from honesty. Everything comes down to honesty. What we have right now, is the only thing that matters, and that's just the pure essence of what life is. Is the pure essence of being in love with a beautiful woman, having integrity. We're nearly out of time. I have this incredible, crazy attitude that if I'm doing business with people, and you bring with a bunch of guys, then they start talking, and then one of them says, I went out last week and I played up, and I got this chick, and the minute they say that, they are no longer welcome in my company to do business with me. Because if they tell me they play up on their missus, what are they going to do to me? If you cheat on your wife, if you cheat on your partner, there's no way in the wide world I'll do business with you. I don't care who you are, how much money you have, what companies you own, or how much you can advance my company. I won't do business with you.
I love that.
Because your integrity is not there. If you cheat on the mother of your children, the woman who feeds you, the woman who washes your clothes and cleans your home, what the hell will you do to me?
You don't even like me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm nobody compared to that. I'm nobody compared to that person that you're cheating on. So it tells me that you're not a person of integrity. And my mates, when I say it to them, they get blown away. But 90% of the guys that big note that stuff think that you're going to get a pat on the back and just like, good on you, mate. Good on you. And I'm like, no, you're a piece of crap, mate.
So are you pretty cutthroat with your values?
Yeah.
Not only your core values with yourself, but the standards you have for other people and yourself.
100%.
Really?
Because the way the people treat me is a reflection of their attitude towards me. The way I allow people to treat me is a reflection of my attitude of myself.
Love that.
So therefore, if somebody treats me with disrespect, if they're unreliable, if they're inconsistent, if they're dishonest, I don't want them in my life. For me to allow them to in my life is lowering my own personal self-esteem. And I have this standard of self-esteem that I'm congruent. I don't expect you to treat me any different to the way I treat you. So if I treat you with love, kindness and respect, I expect that back. In fact, it's a big word, demand, but I demand it back. Otherwise, I remove myself from that.
I love that.
That relationship.
You don't allow any toxic people to be in your circle.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And if we sit down at the table and a lot of people start to talk about other people, my human side wants to get involved, then I'll detach myself and go, no, stop it. First thing I ask myself, is it true? Is it helpful? And do I need to hear it? If those three answers aren't yes, I'm not part of that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. And if someone's come to me, and this is you can ask Trent, if somebody comes to me and says, oh, Elliott, blah, 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 I say, really? Funny. Hey, Elliott, I've got Billy here. Talk to Elliott. Tell him what you just told me. And then just
done it before.
Yes, mate. Yes, I have. Yeah. I've done that before with bad people. With gangsters who'll talk about somebody else and go, oh, really? Talk to him. Tell him what you just told me.
Yeah, as well.
Because if you can't say it to his face, don't say it to my face.
It's the same thing, yeah.
It's the same thing, you know, it's integrity. At the end of the day, my integrity today is really, really nice. And, you know, it's been a pleasure, mate. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah.
And we will go again. But yeah, mate, Elliott Hagen, thank you very, very much for coming on The Truth About Addiction. We could go for hours, mate, but no, we're good. Gentlemen, pleasure. Thank you.
Mate, yeah, same as you. Not only a pleasure to be here and chat with you, but just such an honour to get to know you and to know you on a more personal and become friends with you since our last episode. You really are a role model. I don't think 50 years ago, 20 years ago, you would have thought yourself as a role model. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
I want you to be proud of yourself and the man you are today, because you are a role model for so many people out there. So I really appreciate it and appreciate our friendship. So thank you for having me on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for The Truth About Addiction. Thank you very much.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.